Hello and welcome to episode 77 of the She Must Knit podcast. My name is Erin and thank you so much for spending some of your time with me today. I hope you guys had a great week. I've had a really good week, a busy week as usual. This whole month is just going to be a busy month, as you know. I think the last time I talked with you, it was on last Friday, so it was the day before I was going to Kitchener for the Kitchener-Waterloo Knitters Fair. And it was a great show. If you came by my booth to say hello, I so appreciate it. So many of you did. You came by to say that you watched the podcast and that you enjoy it so much. And yeah, it was just a really, really nice day. It was a steady show, but it wasn't too busy. I was by myself. Usually I have a helper for that show. But yeah, I was by myself, but it was just a nice, steady, busy show, but not too busy that I was like run off my feet or anything. So it was a really, really good show. I look forward to doing it again next year. And again, if you came by to say hi, thank you so much. So what else have I been doing? As you know, I am working on a huge wholesale order. That is part of the reason why this episode is going up just a little bit later than usual. Usually I try to record on Friday so that I can have it up Saturday morning. That just was not possible this week. Friday, I was busy all day trying to get as much of this order done as I can. I have to have it shipped off later this week. And then Friday evening, I had an opportunity to go out and be social, and I never get to do that, so I decided to take it. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later as well. But then yesterday, I was at my mom's, and we were just busy little bees trying to get as much of the stuff that I have made packaged and ready to go so that this week there's just the minimal amount possible that I have to get finished. So that was my weekend so far. Today is Sunday. Dennis and Avery are off having a daddy-daughter day so that I can have some time to myself. So I thought, perfect, I'm going to just try and record a quick episode and then get back to work. So what do I have to share with you today? I have the little bit of knitting that I've been able to get done. It really isn't very much. I have some stuff to show you from my evening out on Friday. I went to a yarn tasting at my local yarn store, which was really fun. And then I think we're just going to talk about some more planning. So last episode, I think I talked about some projects that I have in mind that I really want to start as soon as I get my regular knitting time back. And this is kind of an extension on that. I've got some yarns that I think I'm going to be purchasing. I got the Knit Picks catalog in the mail and it's got me kind of thinking. So we're just going to have a little chat at the end about that. But otherwise, let's just start with what I was able to knit on this week. And as always, we've already been joined by a Mr. T. He seems to just know when I'm setting up and I've got everything, my table and everything, and he just plops himself. He's already passed out in front of me. I've got a giant cat butt right in front of me. I've had to work around him, but I don't think he's going to cause any trouble because he is nice and calm. He already did, when I was setting up the little yarns from the yarn tasting, he was very interested in those, and I had to keep taking them away from him. He kept trying to snatch them, but he seems to have calmed down now. So we are going to get right into what I was working on this week. And if you could guess, it's my September Desert Vista Dye Works socks. This has become the project that is pretty much my only focus this month. If you remember earlier in the month, I had a couple of other goals that I wanted to complete this month. Those are long gone. I honestly, if I finish my Desert Vista Dye Works socks this month, I will be perfectly content with that because I just had no other time to knit. So when I showed them to you in the last episode, I think I was still working on the leg, and I had said that I was hoping to bring them with me to Kitchener and maybe get a little bit of work on them the Friday evening and then maybe work on them a little bit during the show, and I was able to do that. So while I was at the show, I was able to put in a German short row heel, and then since then I've been working down the foot. So I was somewhere around here when I showed it to you last. I was able to put in the heel at the show, and then this is how much I've been doing this week. So whenever I have just a little bit of time, like I said, usually it's a little bit in the morning, while I'm waiting for Avery to have her breakfast and getting her ready before going off to school, I'll knit a few rows. And then sometimes before bedtime, when I am just absolutely pooped, and I don't want to go to bed quite yet, but I just cannot make any more of the things that I'm making, I will try and maybe put on a few rows. So I'm still on my first sock. As you know, usually by the middle of the month, I like to have my first sock done so that I'm working on my second sock for the rest of the month. We are well past the middle of the month now. I'm still on my first sock. If I can finish the foot this week, I think I'll still be okay. I have to get my order shipped out by the end of the week, and then there are still a couple of days before the last day of the month. I know I can do a pair of socks in 4 days if I absolutely, that's all I work on. So I think I can do a sock in 4 days. So I still have my hopes up. I still think I'm going to be able to do this. But oh my goodness, I cannot wait until this is done and sent off. The light, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel at this point. Like I said, we were at my mom's yesterday packaging and stuff. I brought all of that home. It's sitting over there. There are boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes and bags and bags and bags filled with things. And there's just a little bit left at my mom's that is being worked on. And then I am working on just a little bit left as well here. So I can see the light. It's almost done and I can go back to my regular schedule, and I am so looking forward to it. But yeah, so that's all I worked on in terms of projects that I already had on the go. And then, like I said, I was able to go out Friday evening for a yarn tasting. So my local yarn store, Unwind Yarn House, was having an event, a yarn tasting, and I've just been so busy I didn't even know this was happening, but a friend of mine had purchased a bunch of tickets to go with some of her friends, and one of them had to cancel because she was sick, and so she messaged me and said, hey, do you want to join us? And at first I was just like, oh, there's no way, because Dennis always has soccer. He always has soccer in the evenings. And I just happened to, he was home, and I was like, hey, are you home tonight? He's like, yeah, I'm home tonight. I'm like, you're home tonight? Really? So yeah, I was able to message her back and be like, Dennis is home, I can go with you guys. And it was just a lot of fun. So if you are not familiar with what happens at a yarn tasting, the yarn shop will put together a bunch of yarns that they want to feature for the yarn tasting. So some samples, they'll wind off little samples. So for example, this is how Karen, who is the owner of Unwind Yarn House, had things set up. I have used little bits of each one of these because I did knit with them while we were there. But we had these little cupcake papers and then a little mini of yarn in each one. And she had it set up from the lightest weight, so your fingering yarns, to your heaviest weight. There was a sheet explaining what each yarn was with areas that you could make notes if you wanted. And then we had about 15 minutes, so we talk about each yarn to start with, and then we had about 15 minutes to knit with the yarn. You could do little swatches if you wanted. You could knit them all together. We were told to bring a variety of needles, and then afterwards we would discuss each one, what we thought of it, you know, what we liked about it, maybe what we didn't like about it. In total, we were able to knit with 8 different yarns, and I can honestly say that none of them, if I had just seen on the shelf, would have interested me very much. But I ended up walking away. I picked out one skein of yarn that just while working with it just really surprised me. So I will show that to you. But first I'm going to show you the little swatch that I ended up making. So I decided that I was just going to knit them all together, and with the idea that I would have some sort of like little piece of fabric that I could then give to Avery that she could use for her dolls or her dollhouse. You know how she likes using bits of everything for all kinds of applications. So that was my idea. I was going to make one big swatch and then just give it to her. So this is what I ended up walking away with. So this is the one we started with here, and this is a 2-ply fingering BFL yarn. And like I said, this is not one, you can see it here in the skein, this is a hand dyed yarn. This is not one that if I had seen in the skein on the shelf I would have been really attracted to. Usually like 2-ply fingerings are really nice for lace weight and stuff like that, for lace weight projects, shawls, and that's not really what I go for. But it was really fun knitting with it, and just seeing what it's like. So that's what this whole thing was about, was just experimenting with different yarns and seeing what they were like. So this next one here is actually a hedgehog fiber arts, like their sock weight yarn. And so this is probably the one that I was most familiar with, that type of yarn. And this is the extras here. And so I knew I liked that. This is the closest to what I would automatically purchase if I was looking for something, because I do make a lot of socks. I do like doubling this type of yarn to do like worsted weight projects and stuff. So that's what that one was. That was the one I was most familiar with. And then this one really, really surprised me. So in the little skein, I don't know if you can see, but you can see all these little kind of bits sticking out of it. This is a mixture of merino, yak, and linen. So those little white flecks and those little kind of bits sticking out are the linen. And I know I don't usually like plant-based or fibers that have plant components to them, so I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about this one. Like, just I could feel kind of like the prickliness like in my fingers, and I was just like, okay, this is different, but I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it. Knitting with it, I actually really, really enjoyed the process of knitting with it. I do think it would be too prickly for me. I'm a sensitive little princess when it comes to like the woolliness of yarns. I'm not allergic. I know I'm not allergic. It's just a sensitivity. I can feel the prickles. So I don't think I would be able to wear this, but I really liked the kind of rustic nature of it, and I think it would be really, really nice for like a man knit, like a hat for Dennis or something. Or because the yak would be so warm, if I wanted to make mittens or something like that, I would just have to line them and then they would be super, super warm. So I was actually really surprised. I enjoyed working with this one a lot. And then this purple one here, it's heathered. I don't know if the different colors will pick up on camera. All the colors in this range were beautifully heathered. And this one surprised me as well, because this is a non-superwash wool, and normally, again, I would not be attracted to it just because it would be so kind of more rustic for me. But again, I really, really enjoyed working with it. It was just a really round yarn. Like here, this is the little sample you can see. It was just really nice and round and plump, and it would be really great for different stitches and stuff, and I just really enjoyed working with it. So this is actually the one that I purchased, and I will show you that after which color I picked out. So again, I really enjoyed working with it, and I knew I would just have to, whatever I made, I would just have to make sure I lined it, and then it would be perfect. I would have all the warmth, but then the comfort as well. So that one surprised me. I will show you what I purchased afterwards. So this next one here is an alpaca blend, and I'm usually not very attracted to alpacas. I just find them too, like, they're very soft usually, but I find them too drapey for what I tend to like to make. But it was really nice being able to knit with it because I don't buy alpaca. This is the little extra here, so it was a really, really pretty yarn. And then this one was also fun to work with. I don't know if you've heard other podcasts talk about this structure of yarn. So there's like, it's like there's this core, so the kind of lighter part you see there is like this cabled core that is created, and then the alpaca fibers, so that fuzzy orange part there, the alpaca fibers are blown into that core. So what you end up with is this really, really lightweight, kind of soft, warm yarn. And I've seen various yarns with this kind of construction out there and available, but it's just not something that I would ever think to kind of splurge on. But it was really fun working with it. So Karen also had a bunch of samples. I think for most of the yarns here, she had some sort of sample made up in the yarn so that we could see what it was like when it was done in an actual garment or a shawl or some sort of knitted piece, so that we could see what the yarn looked like in a pattern or in, you know, some sort of form. So this one here, she had this beautiful cowl done up, and the cowl had a stitch pattern where you could really see kind of the sheen of the yarn, but then also the fabric was really soft. It was really quite nice. So it was fun working with this yarn as well. So this is the little piece that I completed. There were actually 2 more yarns that I decided not to add to that piece because I already knew kind of how I felt about it, and it was going to take away from the, like, they were starting to get thicker and thicker, and I didn't want this piece to get too kind of wide on one end. So the next one that we got to play with was this Noro. I have worked with Noro before. I like it in certain applications like felting and stuff like that, but I don't really like garments or accessories in Noro. And then the last one that we had was this super chunky kind of merino robing. So I did not add this to it as well, but it's fun to have. It's just fun to have this little sample so that I can kind of try it out. I might be able to do something with this. We'll see. But those were the 8 yarns that we were able to work with. There were snacks there. We had some water and some sparkling beverages. So it was just like a nice evening to sit around and talk with some other knitters and discuss yarn. So back to the one that I selected. So this is the purple one. Is the yarn that I decided to purchase. We did get a bit of a discount if we wanted to purchase anything that evening, and I chose this color here. So the name of the yarn is Scout, and it is from Kelborn Woolens, and it is 100% merino yarn. And I'm hoping that the heathered color will kind of pick up on camera. I thought this one was really pretty. There's kind of this medium slate blue base, but then there are like these purple heathers and kind of teal heathers. There's just some really pretty colors in this, and I thought that this would make kind of a really nice hat, that it would bring out the blue in my eyes, and then also it would be very warm. And with the structure of the yarn, I could pick out something that maybe had some really interesting stitch definition, like cables or a textured stitch. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look. I know I have a bundle in my favorites of hat patterns. I'm gonna have to go through that and just see if there's something that kind of speaks to me in terms of knitting something with that yarn. But overall, it was a really fun experience. If there's a yarn store near you that offers something like this and you kind of hear about it, it's a fun thing to try. You get to try some of the newer yarns that are out and just kind of see what they're like without having to buy a full skein and discover, you know, whether you like it or maybe you don't like it. So it was just fun to experiment with. So that is the other tiny itty bitty bit of knitting that I got to do. The last thing I'm going to talk about today is just some planning. So like I said, last week I talked about some projects that I wanted to make, I maybe had or did not have the yarn for, and one of them was the light box pullover. And this is a sweater that I've decided I want to make Avery for Christmas. And I was saying how I have a lot of yarn, like sock yarn, that I can use for the accent color, but I didn't really have a nice tonal for the main color. So that's something that I was thinking I was going to have to supplement and go out and purchase. But then the Knit Picks catalog arrived. So I still get these, and I still really enjoy getting these. I don't know, I'm sure a lot of you have received this in the mail as well. I always like having a little browse, just seeing what is new. And there was a yarn in here that really kind of piqued my interest. It's a new yarn for them, and I'm very curious about it. So it is this twill yarn, and it is 100% superwash merino, and it's just the kind of the structure of the yarn just looks really, really nice and kind of plump. They're calling it bouncy, versatile, and luxuriously soft. I have in mind that I would really like to make Dennis another sweater. I think 2 years ago I finished one for him in the Rowan superwash yarn, and it has held up beautifully. He is so rough on his things, and he wears it all the time, and I've been able to throw it in the washer and the dryer, and at this point 2 years later it might need a little bit of a shave. You know, there might be some pills on there that I could just shave off, but otherwise it still looks really, really good. So I want to make him another sweater, and originally I was thinking of just buying more of that Rowan yarn because I know it works really well. Well, this yarn has me intrigued, and so because I need a solid color for the sweater that I want to make for Avery, I was thinking of maybe ordering some of their Stroll in one of their solid colors for her sweater, and then perhaps throwing in 1 or 2 skeins of this yarn here. So I wouldn't order a whole sweater quantity for Dennis right away. I want to try it out. I want to knit with it, maybe make a little kid garment or something, and then be able to wash it and dry and just see how it behaves and see if it will stand up to what he does to his clothes. So I kind of have that in my mind. So I'm just curious, if you got this catalog, and let me know if there was anything in there that kind of piqued your interest. I know a lot of us are preparing for gift knits. I mentioned last week that I started the thread in the Bling Your String group for the holiday, the gift along, just any kind of gift that you are making to prep for the holiday season. You can enter in there, and we are all busily working away. So if you have any plans on your list for gifts that you are making people, and you think that you're going to have to maybe go out and get some yarn, and maybe Knit Picks is one of those places that you order from, I would love to know if there was anything in this catalog that kind of piqued your interest. They had a lot of kind of accessories and gifty type things, like little bits and bobs, not necessarily the yarn, that were really cute as well, with like llamas and cats and stuff. So I'm thinking I might place a little order with them. I have not bought a lot of yarn this year, and yeah, I think I can give myself that, and I can make a little Knit Picks order. So that is what I have in my mind. Like I said, once this wholesale order is done, I think the sweater for Avery, and then the little sweater that I showed you that I wanted to make with my hand spun, I think that's going to be like first thing. I want to get those cast on. I just feel like working on something different. I feel like all I've been doing lately is sock knitting, and a really quick little kid garment I think will just satisfy something within me that needs to be satisfied in terms of knitting projects. But that is it. I think that is it for this week. That is all I have to chat with you about. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you've had a lovely weekend, since by the time you see this, it will probably be nearing the end of the weekend. But otherwise, I hope you are going to have a wonderful week until I talk to you again. So yeah, I hope you had a very crafty weekend. I hope you had a lovely weekend, and I will talk to you soon.